welcome to Story Dev. My name is Luke, also known as Tienery. And since the last video, which I uploaded onto my YouTube channel yesterday, we are actually going to be doing our very first programming session. As you can see here, since I did my video on switching programming languages, I've decided to use hacks and continue using hacks. Now, for those who actually looked at that video from the Odin community, they were probably wondering or thinking perhaps I would actually make the switch. Now, this was a good demonstration to have because what it demonstrated was why you should switch to a different programming language, why you shouldn't. And one of the primary reasons why I haven't actually done the full switch is because of the fact that a lot of code has already been done. I've already put a lot of effort into libraries that I've built myself, including the actual interactive story engine that I've built with hacks. There's another library that I use called Card Text Box, which is basically a custom built text field, which allows you to, do data entry, that sort of thing. And it's got multi-line and word wrapping and that sort of thing, and it formats everything. It's got scroll bar functionality, and you can scroll with the mouse wheel and other such things like that. So that I've got all of these different projects that I've built in hacks that I'd have to migrate into Odin before I can even continue working on the game. And that's a lot of work to do. It might not sound like much if it's only just a couple of thousand lines of code, but for my first project, if you had watched my previous video, the introduction to Shadowlight, then you would actually find that I don't have as much time on my hands as I would like to. So working just in hacks is the best thing for this project currently. I do actually enjoy programming in Odin. I will probably work on a side project whenever I get to a point in this project when I'm programming. I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm trying to do, and I can't quite figure it out. But most of the time I'll probably be working on this video game after work or just before work every morning. And I'll just continue working on it over and over and over again, and just every week, as mentioned in the on my Patreon page and also in the previous video, is every week I'll be producing these videos, programming sessions. This first programming session is going to be available for free to the public for everyone to view. These are going to be in-depth sessions, so you'll actually see me code, you'll actually see me explain the process of and the thinking process behind what it is that I'm trying to achieve in this given moment. So in this case, what I'm currently working on is expanding the actual database for the crystals and items. Most of it's already complete, if you probably saw in the previous video, but there's still quite a few things that need to be added. I've just somewhat implemented searching, but it isn't quite complete yet, so we'll continue with that, and also look at selecting icons. So that's what's going to be happening in this programming session. And every month, starting from yesterday, so every first Saturday of each month, I'll be compiling a video together of all of the things that we have done in the previous month, or rather I always have the habit of saying we instead of I. Most of the time when I say we, I technically just mean I, because I'm literally the only person working on this project at the moment. I do have a graphics artist who is available when I need graphics, but most of the time it'll just be me programming and working on this game. And what you'll see is just the actual overview of what's happened since the previous month in those monthly videos. But that's basically a brief explanation of what's been happening and what will happen in the future going forward. Hopefully this will generate enough interest in the project. Hopefully people will come on board. So let us explain what's going on here. So we're going to actually begin the programming session properly now. So here I've actually put together, okay, to put a bit of context into this game, into this code. So right at the very top, I've got a table of contents here. Now I'm kind of future-proofing myself here, really, because a lot of this stuff is obviously to do with if other people were to start working on this project, which will probably happen at a later point. There's a lot of notes here, as you can see, but it can also be used as a reference for my own purposes as well, in case I ended up getting confused about something or forgetting something, and try to have some consistency in the code base, because consistency is good. But up here we've got a table of contents, and this basically is all of the actual sections that exist in this code base. So if I were to say rendering, well, you can just highlight, find, and it goes straight to that section. I can do the same for interfaces, for example. I can do that. So I can jump down to the interface code, right? The same would be the case for utilities. So, you know, I can do utilities. That jumps us down to there. And editor UI, which is what we're currently working on, which is here. Now, there's a lot of codes in this code base, as you can imagine. I'm not going to go too much into detail with what's already been done, because it's too much code to discuss at the moment. And of course, a lot of this code is technically commercial. So obviously, when the game is actually finally released, the actual game will be an executable that you'll download onto Linux, Windows, Mac, what have you. And a lot of this code will of course be obfuscated, but basically, to demonstrate, this is all the API. This is all a custom editor. So in Hacks there's a library called Zooey that I did start using for this particular purpose, to actually modify certain elements of the database. And I decided after a while that regarding the actual API, it was a bit clumsy in places. There's good things and bad things about it, but the way in which it handles return values, and the way that it handles sort of values that you are trying to retrieve from an array of items. Say, for example, you've got this database over here, for example. So we've got this crystal database, right? We've got a start ID. So every time we add something to the database, the start ID is incremented by 1, and we add some data. into that database. If we go up here, we will actually see that code. So let's have a look. Here we've got our crystal database, and this is the code to actually add a crystal into the database. So it's generating a lot of default values, right? We're incrementing the start ID by 1. We're adding the crystal on against the database right at the very end, and we're saying we're going to edit that item immediately, and that's what we're going to do. Right now, all of this stuff is dependent on making sure that the item that you're currently editing actually has its values be rendered on screen as you would expect it to, right? So we've got a crystal ID, we've got a crystal name, we've got an item reference, we've got attributes that we can open and close. So this is basically kind of like an accordion. I call it collapsible because that makes more sense in my eyes. And then we render all this stuff, right? And basically, my point is that with Zui, for people who actually understand hacks and have seen Zui or used it, the way that Zui works is that in order to pass it a default value, you have to use a macro, which actually generates code. That has unintended consequences, as you can imagine. If you've got a macro that's actually generating code, and what that means is that code doesn't change between different values. Now you can, but there's another feature of Zui that allows you to nest macro calls on a per index basis. Now, even that is a bit clumsy. There's the way that it then generates it is based on the fact that, okay, you've nested, let's say, an index that you pass into it. It generates a macro and it generates code respective of that particular index that you're passing in. So if, say, for example, you're saying, okay, I want to get the first crystal index in this list, and I want to modify the properties of this crystal in Zui. You do that, and what happens is, if you nest that, it will say, okay, we're going to generate all of the default values based on this particular index. If we do index 1, then we'll nest and generate the code for that particular index, and so on and so forth, right? So that's all well and good, but when you start making things a bit more complicated and start adding things like these collapsibles, for example, imagining this is working from the Zui framework, sometimes it gets a bit finicky. I experienced, when I was working with it, I experienced flickering often, and I just decided, okay, I'm not gonna use this anymore. So it's not actually that hard to build a user interface, as you can see. I mean, all of this stuff actually took me probably about a day or two of work total. So it's really not that complicated to build a user interface. It's not complicated. If we actually run this and see what's going on, we will see, excuse me, we will see that in our databases, so if we go to crystal database, if I were to say red crystal, right, just as an example, we've got this ID, right, red crystal attributes. This is what it looks like. So this is actually a numeric up and down. So the way I modify it is by just scrolling up and down with the mouse wheel. So that just modifies that value like that. We've got items required. So there's no, this is the next part of the actual progress that needs to be done. So again, we can modify the quantity of the items required to create this crystal. Okay, and we've got items created, no items. So we eventually this button will allow us to search items that we want to search for and actually assign it to this value here. Upgrades. So you can upgrade the that's another thing I should really implement is scrolling. I should probably do that actually. So we've got this upgrade here. Right, and then effects as well. We've got, does crystal have a defending effect? Does it have an active effect? We've got passive effects here, so we can, you know, edit description. This is some description, right? Obviously, I'm just using that as an example, and then we can edit defending effect. I'm just going to press enter on that and cancel that. And then, of course, going into here, this is some description, just like what we saw just now. And that is how it basically works. And again, with this item reference, again, the idea is to be able to search. If I were to create another item here, I don't know, indigo, beach crystal, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever, we're just going to do that. And then if we were to search, we can search the database, right? So we can say red crystal, and then, you know, it appears, and then indigo, that only shows, and then, you know, if I were to say just crystal, it displays any kind of search result will display when we start typing. So that's, as you can see, that's pretty much just a work in progress. So as you can see, you know, user interfaces are not hard to make. So, first things first, I was actually going to demonstrate how to fully implement that search functionality and probably fix that as well. That doesn't seem right. Get rid of that. And fix that as well. Interesting. Okay. Let's write a few notes down. So, oh, it just disappeared. Okay. That's a bit odd. What? Oh. There's a little bit of a problem with the text box. It's only a minor issue, but... So, note number 1. So the first thing we need to do, fix search results. Don't let them just display after we press enter, right? Which we can do. That's fairly simple to do. Scrolling. So we're going to basically just going to put some notes down. This is basically just going to be the tasks that we do in our programming session, and then I'll go off and do something else. So implement scrolling, that's another thing we need to do. And the final thing is actually implement actual search functionality. Whether we get onto icon selection in this video is going to be dependent on time, so I will put it down, but we will see how much time has gone into the video, because I don't want it to go on for too long. So icon selection, that'll be for cases like, for example, if I go to items, again, that needs to be fixed. But if we were to say create new item like this, right? As you can see, that obviously needs to be fixed. So if we were to type, so we've got our new item, right? We can change the type of item that it is, a material, is it a crystal? We've got these different flags here, maximum quantity. So icon index, that's currently not doing anything, as you can see. But the idea is to be able to, when we click that button, is have an icon set show just next to the editor to basically say, okay, this is the icon we want to select, and we grab the index from the icon that we selected in that image. So whether we get to that is really just dependent on time. Okay, let's fix search results. Let's do that first, shall we? So when we press enter, which will be in our handle text input context, when we press enter, I am literally just going to say db search context is equal to -1 and search text is equal to empty. Search results is going to be empty, and our search result indices is also going to be empty. So that'll be what we do after we've dealt with the actual handling of pressing enter. But that should literally just fix that issue pretty much straight away. So fairly easy to do. Yes, I know it. That creepy face in the corner of the title screen looks a bit weird. So if I was to do item 1, item A, I should probably focus that text box when we click that button. Might be a good idea, but anyway. Unknown item. Yeah, why not? Okay, so if I were to do item 1, no, well, it doesn't. I don't know why it does this, but yeah. Unknown. And then if we were just say that and oh, why is it doing that for? Why is it still rendering? That doesn't make sense. Oh. I know why. So when we do editor input index, if we were to go to this, basically we're rendering a button, we get the response. And if the response is true, right, which would be when we press enter, or click the button, should I say, it's setting, where is it? Setting all those values that we just saw up here. When I finally get to it, there we go. So we're doing all this, right? Search context. However, when we do handle text input context, oh, because it's empty, isn't it? Ah, damn it. Okay. That's why. Well, in that case, then, let's make sure that we check it here. So, if text input context input context search database, because we need to make sure that actually does clear, and then then search results, search result indices. Eventually, when I actually manage to press the arrow keys correctly, and the search text as well, reset them all just to be 100% sure, and then that should work. Let's have a look. So red crystal, green crystal. Very original names, as you can see. Just going to say crystal here. Oh. Uh-oh. Huh. Wait. What? What did I just do? Search. Crystal. This is interesting. Handle text input context. Am I doing this? Where am I calling that? I'm doing it oh. I'm doing it in the wrong place. What am I doing? I'm doing it in the wrong place. I thought this was the return handler, but it's not. I'm being stupid. No. What does it call it? Let's do 5 utilities. Here we are. Right. So we get this, right? This is the actual handle primary text box return. So this is what I should be doing. And basically what we do is we say if text input context is greater than -1, if, in fact, did I? Yeah, I did. So if it's that, then do all that as well as doing this, right? So I was doing that in the wrong place. So we should still see the search results, but when we press enter, it should disappear. So, like this. Again, this is just for testing. So we'll do all this, search. Crystal, that's there, red, yeah. Disappear, yeah, it's gone. Right. That is that done. So we can mark that off our list. Cool. Done. Okay, so next thing to do is definitely implement scrolling. That's something I didn't do. And this is normally how I handle scrolling is by doing something like this. So what I'll do, I'll say editor, scrolling, and what I'll do here is I'll have array fast factor 2. Basically, this is just the X and Y position of the actual container that we're scrolling in. We're just going to implement the Y position for the time being. And then we'll say editor, current scroll index. And when we initialize the editor, so in here, I'll say editor scrolling, and we'll have a maximum value for this. So we'll make it inline. We'll say editor scroll max, or editor scroll max, like this, right? Oop. Still say 100 for now. Editor scroll max. Just gonna make it empty for the time being, like this. So basically what that's doing is we're saying, okay, every single item from 0 to 100, or not including 100, we're just going to create a new fast vector 2, which starts at 0, 0. That's that. Next thing I'm going to do is render UI. So we're going to go down here and we are going to implement our scrolling. If we go to editor panel, we can do it in here. And we're going to say, okay, editor scrolling, editor scroll, current scroll index, right? In fact, we don't really need to do that. I think all we need to do is say function I'm going to say function end scroll. If you're wondering why it looks a little inconsistent, the actual I should do that. If you're wondering why all of this stuff looks a bit consistent in terms of naming conventions, the main reason so I'm mixing naming conventions, as you can see, and I'm also not being consistent either. Consistency is good, folks. Don't mess things up. So we'll just do that, and then what was the other one I just did? Oh, position, right? Okay, but yeah, anyway, as I was saying, so the reason why it looks a little inconsistent why I'm using underscores for some things and then switching back over to something else. So the main reason being is because everything is all in one document. So all of the sections in this code, I'm basically indicating, okay, anything that is related to the editor must have editor underscore. I don't actually do it here. It's really mainly for functions more so than anything else. But yeah, I need to fix my consistency in places. I'm not very consistent with my naming conventions. It's not very good. I do apologize to anyone who is better at being consistent with naming conventions, because I'm not very good at it. I'm not as pedantic as most people probably would be. But anyway, so we've got our scrolling. Basically, what needs to happen is we need to figure out the actual height of the contents. So, function editor begin scroll. So we'll say begin scroll and end scroll. So we'll have this, and we'll say, get back to our editor, scrolling. Here, I'll also say editor scroll container. There's also going to be an array of fast vector 2, which will contain all of our container sizes. We'll just basically do the same with that one. So editor scroll container, right? So what will happen is in our advanced row code, is it advanced? Would it be our advanced row or advanced position? So basically here, what we're going to do is we're just going to say, okay, if, you know, within scroll or something like that, within, or editor within scroll, obviously we haven't declared that yet. We're just going to say, okay, editor scroll container, editor scroll index plus equals, and then that, exactly like we did. We don't have that yet, so let's declare that. That's probably a good idea. Let's go back to 7 editor UI. In fact, it was up here. I don't know. Oh. Do 6, the editor. Well, I'll just see. I'll have a look at that in a minute. So here we'll say this ball initially is going to be false. And when we go to our editor begin scroll, I'm going to say we're within a scroll. Our editor scroll container, current scroll index dot y is equal to 0, or in fact we're just create a new fast vector 2, why not? We'll do that. And then in end scroll, what we're going to do is we're going to say editor current scroll index, that's going to increment by 1. Editor within scroll equal to false. And then whether we actually have the ability to scroll will be dependent on our current container followed by the actual height. Yes, of course. So inside of our begin scroll, we actually have to specify a height. So our width and height, which if we're doing a panel, we're actually going to say editor begin scroll. We'll just pass in our width and height here. And inside of here, we'll say editor scroll container Editor scroll. Maybe that should be editor scroll. Content. Content size. That's what it should be. So if we change that to that, and then we have editor scroll container size, that makes more sense, right? Declare that. We will go back to our begin scroll. And in here I'm going to say editor scroll container size current scroll index equal to new first vector 2 followed by our width and then our height. So what we'll do then is inside of end scroll, what we're going to do is before we reset everything, we're going to check first of all which direction our mouse delta is going in. So if I remember correctly, mouse delta greater than 0, I think that's up. I made this mistake before. Is it up or down? Only one way to find out. Numeric. What do I do here? No, less than 0 is up. Yeah, I would have got that wrong. I would have got that wrong. Less than 0 is up. Up. I don't know why. I don't know if it's hardware related. I'm pretty sure previous mice I've used, it's the other way, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, so we've got our mouse delta greater than 0, which is down, right? So let's say our increment is going to be, say, 25 pixels. And what I'm going to do so if we do if editor container content size, right, editor current scroll index dot y is greater than editor scroll container size editor current scroll index dot y, then that basically means that we can scroll. So I'll copy that and so can scroll so if that's the case, I'm not going to say remaining content height is basically this same thing, but I'm gonna say minus. That's the remainder, right? Remaining content height. And I think what I'd like to do is actually add if it's greater than 0, then we're gonna add an additional 50 pixels. So in a lot of programs, for example, you might use it's quite typical in text editing programs where if you scroll down to the bottom, like even in here, for example, so if I were to scroll down to the bottom, it actually leaves quite a big gap, pretty much an entire page's worth, as you can see, so that it's easier to actually see what's going on. So we're basically implementing that same functionality here, but only by 50 pixels. We're not going to go that insane. So what I'm then going to do is, if our remaining content height is great, or can scroll, I should say. I suppose really, I don't really need this, do I? I can just measure remaining content height. So if our remaining content height is greater than 0, so this is up, which means that what we want to do is make sure that our editor scrolling, editor current scroll index.y is greater than 0. So if it's greater than 0 and we're scrolling up, this is what that behavior would be. Then we're just going to say adding clamp, do it here. So we'll say that adding clamp. And in here we say the value followed by the amount. So we're going to say increment, and our min is going to be 0, and our max is going to be what is it going to be? I suppose this. Maybe. It doesn't really matter because it's going up anyway. Now, if we're going up, that means we have to minus the value. So we'll do minus here. The other way is different. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to say, if this is less than our remaining content height, so in actuality it's actually remaining content height. I'll do that here as well. And then we shall increment that in the other direction, so we're actually scrolling down rather than up. And then what we need to do is when we do our advanced position, or advanced position, no. Here, right. So we've got our content size, but if we've got say if we are within a scroll, right, then actual Y position. Actually, I'm going to do editor resolve scroll position. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if within editor within scroll, I'm going to say it's going to say our editor position dot x and editor position dot y. So it'll be whatever that position is. If we are within a scroll, then we're going to say result dot y minus equals our editor scrolling, editor's current scroll index dot y, like that, and then we're just going to return the result. So anywhere where we're actually rendering anything, we're going to use this function to determine what the actual position of the element is. So that's quite a few functions. As you can see, we've got inline radio, we've got all of these different values here. So we're going to say var position is equal to here. We're basically just going to do this, do everything like this. So position, right? Anywhere where we've got a position value like this, going to replace it. This is going to take a while. Position, 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 position. There is a lot of positions. I should probably learn how to use Visual Studio Code properly, but this is what it is. Oh, what? Oh, there's a function, not a reference to a function. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm gonna do the same here. So again, var position equal to that. Pass position everywhere once again. It's just one of those things that you have to do, because that's the way programming works sometimes. here, do the same. Do the same. Again, that is not a reference to a function. You actually want to call it to get the result. Otherwise, we'll just get the function. And hacks will think we're referencing a function when we're really not, or trying to. There probably is a better way of doing this. Don't need to do anything here. Text. Excuse me. Var position equal to that. Position. Do the same for the header. Var position equal to that. Position. There we go. Position. Lots of positions, because that's just what we do. As you can see, we've done a lot of function calls for rendering user interfaces, and there's quite a few of them to go through. This might not work immediately, but we shall see. We shall see. I already know there's going to be a slight problem because there's no ability to determine whether or not we're scrolling when we pass over a numeric. So when that happens, basically we'll start scrolling on the numeric value rather than actually scroll the editor. So we'll probably have some kind of animated delay to basically say, okay, we're currently scrolling. Once that delay is up and we're no longer actively scrolling, we'll say, okay, we're no longer scrolling. Something like that. But I'll probably figure that out outside of recording. I did not want caps there. I did not want caps at all. Once again, lots of positions. There is a lot of them, indeed. There is so many of them, it's ridiculous. Are we done now? Oh, that's part of something else. Excuse me. I'm not tired. What are you talking about? Okay, I believe that's done then. So, we shall test it. We shall test it. Let's have a look. Oh, another thing I should do, which I forgot to do, which is up here. In fact, I'll do it under the render UI. So in here, when we start rendering, we want to make sure that we actually reset the scroll position, or the scroll index. So scroll index is equal to 0. Let's do that. Otherwise, bad things will happen. And also, another thing is we didn't actually end scroll anywhere. So anywhere that we're actually calling editor panel, right? Like here, we actually want to end the scroll. So right down here, we are going to say editor end scroll. And that should be that, assuming that is correct. Okay. Let's have a look at what we've done. Okay, so this is interesting. We didn't have a scroll value at all, as far as I'm aware. So what is going on here? What is going on with our resolve scroll position? Because this is probably the code that's causing problems. What is going on here? So we're within the scroll. What is our actual editor scroll? That is a good idea. So game dot editor current. No. Editor scrolling. What are we looking at here? 0, 0. What we're looking at. 0, 0. Oh. Of course. Wait, hold on. No, that doesn't make sense. So our result, right, is 0, 0. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we're returning 0, 0, right? And our position plus editor padding. Our editor padding editor padding is 5, so we just plus equals 5. And then that's that. So what so that's correct. By the looks of it. How bizarre is that? So if we go into here, we then go into here, still the result is 0, 0, right? So what's our actual position? 0, 0. Oh. Still saying 0, 0 here. Okay, something's going on there. Something is going on. It's not what I meant here. So this is weird. If I do, okay. If I do this, what's going on? Ah, the Code Studio, come on. Visual Studio Code has a tendency of disabling your breakpoints. Don't know why. It's very annoying. Waste of time. Why are you disabling it? Stop it. Come on. Everyone at Microsoft is fired. Seriously, stop it. Come on. Keep it active. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in my game. Is this now active? Yes, thank you. Jesus Christ. Talk about pain in the arse. Right, here we go. So, we've got our position X, Y, right? So if we've got our editor scroll index, so our content size is equal to that. So let's add game.editor scroll content size. The reason why you have to prefix it with game is because we're actually editing or debugging in JavaScript, so this is the only way you can actually get references. 0, 0. Advanced that's 34. Okay, that makes sense. So that's fine. Now, what's actually going on when we end scrolling? Because something is going on that's causing those things to go up, which is a little odd. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. It's probably something that I'm just completely overlooking. Minus 654, so we're not doing anything there, we're not doing anything there. Do all that, right? Go back to the top, which is here. Yeah, all right. So we'll say editor position, max width position, etc. Go into here. Content size. Oh. Is this right? Should I be doing that? Yeah, I suppose that's right. But then we go into here. We resolve our position. We get our editor position.x. Right. The one thing I neglected to do with this function is editor advanced position, which is what I should do, really. I shouldn't do that, because that's not good. So let's just, let me do this properly. This might actually work. This might actually work. Header actually ignores rows, because that's just what we do. So I'm just going to say whatever our panel max width is, and our height, which is this. This is probably the problem. All because I neglected to advance position properly. Should probably get it working now. Right, there we go. So, if I just do red crystal like this, and then do all of this, right? And there we go. We're able to scroll. We're scrolling. We are scrolling. We are scrolling. Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. And of course, when we do that, of course, that's having unintended consequences. We don't want that. If we're active over a numeric, for example, then we don't want to activate scrolling, so we should disable that. So any kind of object like this, for example, we want to disable scrolling. So we've got an element of scrolling working. But of course, you can only show one upgrade at a time. That's intended behavior. But what I'm now going to do is, over in numeric, if we are active, then I want to say something along the lines of editor disable scrolling is equal to true, something like that. And we're going to go back to our editor scrolling like this. I'm going to say var bool is false. And we are just going to say, right at the very beginning of our render loop, disable scrolling equal to false if we are scrolling on a numeric anywhere then what that will mean is when we end scroll, and we perform our calculations like this, then we want to make sure that we're only doing it if we're allowing scrolling. So editor disable scrolling. So only do this if disable scrolling is false. And the next thing I want to do is make sure that if I'm already scrolling, well, let's just test this first. Let's just test this first. Do I still have disable our breakpoints? That might be a good idea. So we'll just do this real quick, right? So scrolling, we're scrolling, right? And then when we hover over one of our numerics, when we scroll up on that, we are disabling scrolling for the rest of the control, so that's fine. That's all good. That is expected behavior. We like that. Now then. Now. Next thing I'd like to do is actually make sure, I'm going to just get rid of these because we don't need them. Next thing I'd like to do is actually have some kind of animation. So I'm going to say scroll anim index 1, and in here I'm going to say editor scroll anim index is equal to animate init. No, not. What am I doing? Animate create index, create tick rather. So this is based on the TwinSpark API, which is another framework that I've built, or library. And basically it's got an animation utility library, which is very, very simple. So basically animate create tick, all that does is just give us an index that we can use to animate. So later on, what we can then do is we can say, so we can, if I do the editor is scrolling like this, bold equal to false. When we do our editor end scroll, and we are in fact scrolling, then we're going to say editor is scrolling, editor is scrolling equal to mouse delta not equal to 0, right? Well, actually, how do I want to do this? Okay, so stopped scrolling. Okay, I think I actually want. Okay, this is how I'm going to do it. So if I do editor is scrolling, right? I do mouse delta. That's our scroll value on our mouse wheel. And then if I go, if animates tick, our editor scroll anim index, so we're passing in that index, and then we'll go, actually, I'll do that right at the very beginning of the render loop, so render UI, right? Render UI, there we go. It's easier. Okay, so if I do this, right, and I say, okay, wait 1 second before we consider attempting to change whether or not we're actually scrolling. I'm going to go back to editor actually scrolling. Right. Probably not the best way to do it, but we'll see. So we're going to say that's false initially. And what we'll do is we'll say, okay, in our end scroll, if we've got is scrolling and we've got animate get ratio, so we'll get our ratio of our editor scroll anim index. This is this is greater than 0. So basically what this is saying is that every time we're animating the current scroll, this index, so the way that the underlying API works is for animating, we get back a value between 0 and 1, basically saying, okay, this is the length of time that's passed between 0 and 1, right? So, or 0 and 1 second. So, if we start at 0, then we'll say editor actually scrolling is equal to true, right? And editor is scrolling. So if we start at 0, editor is scrolling, right? When we animate at the beginning of each frame, what I want to do is say, see, So if we scroll, if we start scrolling, we need a flag to say that we are scrolling, right? Hence the Boolean value. But we don't want to keep saying that it's true, or even false for that matter, if we stop scrolling. Once we stop scrolling, we want to give it a second, maybe. I mean, that's just a guess. Maybe probably shorter than that. Maybe more like, say, 400 milliseconds. So we ought to wait 400 milliseconds, depending on fact. Yeah, that's right. We want to use our condition so that it doesn't actually do anything. So we're ticking only if we are actually scrolling at this present time, right? So I'll say if editor actually scrolling, so I'll do this. I'll go back to what I had before. So if we're actually scrolling and we do animate tick, what I want to be able to do is after that tick has passed, we'll say editor actually scrolling is equal to false. Right. And then we just reset it. So we'll reset that. And in our end scroll, if we're scrolling like this, right? Let's not do that. So if editor is scrolling, then I'm going to reset here as well, because I want to reset the ticks so that it returns back to 0. So it's not like, okay, we've completed the tick even if we're still scrolling, because we don't want that. Even if we're still actually scrolling, so we don't want that. So we're waiting 400 milliseconds. We are resetting that value if we're still scrolling so that we don't disable the fact that we are still actually scrolling. So we'll do that. And then in our editor numeric, what we're going to do is we're going to say if active, in fact, if we go here, if active and our editor is not actually scrolling, right? And we will make sure that editor is not actually scrolling when that happens as well. So I think 400 milliseconds should be okay, but we will see. We shall see. Crystals. Unknown crystal. Because why not? So I'm just gonna, you know, and yeah, that works exactly how I would expect it to. So if we're scrolling, not scrolling, scrolling. Yeah. That is exactly what I was expecting. Awesome. All right then. So, 1 hour 30 minutes. Wow. Implement scrolling. That's done. Now, it might not seem like much has actually been done in 1 hour and 30 minutes, but I also have been talking as well and recording. So, should I continue? Implement actual search functionality. That's the next thing on the list. I don't think we're going to get to icon selection in this programming session. I'll probably do that outside of recording. That was probably the most interesting thing to get done, which is the icon selection. But implement actual search functionality. So I'm going to do that, and then I will wrap things up. So, actually implementing search functionality. What does that actually mean? So we've got this here, right? So this is what happens when we handle our text input context. When we press enter, we get a value called text input context value, right? And there's another thing too that we need to handle, which is our up and down arrow keys. When we start searching, we've got to have the ability to actually select the item from our search results and actually press enter, and it gives us back the item that we want. So I'm going to start going in here. So this is the text box library, and let's have a look. No, hold on. If I do key up, maybe. What's key down doing? Oh, we're also right. We're also doing it here as well. Okay, first things first, what I'm going to do is if multi-line, then do that. If multi-line, do that. Because basically all this is doing is it's determining where to place the cursor when we press up or down. And there's no point doing that if we're not in a multi-line scenario. There's literally no point in doing it, right? So that's literally all I've done there. And the same for key up as well. In fact, we didn't even have it for key up, it's just key down. Oh wait, no, it's here. Right. Interesting. Okay, well. So I guess we're just doing it in this case then. If the key down, up, down. If we're multi-line, then do that. So let's update that then. Only go up or down if multi-line equals true. do that. Thank you very much. Right. Next thing I want to do, so the way that I currently handle this text input and also the primary text box, or however I did it, handle primary text box return. That's a callback, as you can see. So thinking I should do the same for up and down as well, but then do I really want that? 'Cause at the moment, there's another thing which our trusty text box has. As you can see, it's object oriented. Most of this API I didn't actually design myself. I actually asked someone else to do this for me. So a lot of it is kind of object oriented, which I'm not really much of an object oriented programmer. I'm more of a procedural programmer. But we do have this thing called custom event handling. We can set that to true. And what that means is we'd have to handle all of our events manually in here. I'm not sure. I mean, it's kind of a good idea to do that. And then I won't need to do callbacks anymore. It's probably the best thing to do, thinking about it. Okay, we're doing it. We're doing it. Right. So the way this works is I've got to make sure mouse move, we pass in all of these things. So mouse X, mouse Y, right? E dot mouse movement X, E dot mouse movement Y. Right, so we're just passing in the events as normal. So we do all of this. I'm going to do primary text box dot mouse down, mouse button, mouse X, mouse Y, right, like this. Another thing, just make it really simple for now. I'm not going to do it too complicated. And then mouse up, E dot mouse button, E mouse X, mouse Y, right. So we're going to do it for all of these. Need to do it for key down and key up. So in this case, what I'm going to do, so this is where I need to actually do the handling of what we want. So here what I'm going to say is if a primary text box is active, then we're going to say primary key down. Technically we're already checking if it's active or not, but the reason I'm doing this check here is because I want to make sure I don't assign this if our text box is active. So here, what are the parameters again? Code, key code, key. What else? Must be dreaming. Again, do the same here. Primary text box, but I can actually type primary text box dot key up, E dot key, right. And we've also got to do key press as well. I think hopefully our cut copy paste functionality will still work. Vent, key press. I'm actually just gonna do primary key press like this, like that. So assuming that's all good, we shall continue. So check if this works first before we move on. Hold on. We're not we're not handling the key down event anymore. So what I want to do here is to actually say if e.key is equal to key code return, right, and then we handle our primary textbook return. Else, get on and do something else, right? Pretty simple. So make sure that actually works, because otherwise we won't do what we want it to do. Okay. So let's just see if this still works, right? That we can still interact with it and stuff like that, right? So red crystal, enter. Yeah, that's still working. Okay, cool. We can add another one, right? And we can still search, right? Certainly can. Okay. So that's still working. All we've basically gone and done is changed the fact that we're no longer using its internal event handling. So we're handling the events ourselves. That will make it easier for us to actually handle the keys, the keystrokes that we press up or down on. Now, do I want to do it on a key down or key up? That's a good question. I think we should keep it in key down for the time being. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if db is search search context is greater than -1, right? So if we're actually searching something, which would suggest we're in a single line text box, then we're going to say if e.key keycode.up, and we're going to do something with that, and the same with keycode.down, right? So we're going to do something with this, but we actually need a variable to modify. So in fact, you know what? I'm actually going to do this keys down. Wait. Okay, now I'm not sure whether I should do it on keys down or not. This is curious. Okay. So the reason now, so there's two ways in which we could do this. We could do it like what I just did just then with these, like this, right? But what that means is that it's kind of confusing. All of the code is kind of like, it's not really in one place like I would like it to be. But it does technically make things a little simpler. However, that said, I would prefer if the code was all in the same place. So instead of doing this, I'm actually going to do it down here. So if db context, search context is greater than -1, then we're going to say keys up, e.key is equal to true, and basically we'll just do the same thing here. And that's assuming that our e.key is either equal to dot up or e.key is equal to down, and our primary text box is not in multi-line scenario. So we'll do it like this. And what I'm going to do now is if we go to render UI, what I am going to say in here is our DB search result selected. By default, we're just going to say is -1. So when we go down here, we've got our search, our selected index, right? So down here, we're going to say if db selected index search result selected, sorry, is less than -1, then I'm going to say db search, or less than 0, should I say, db search is equal to 0, but db search result is instead greater than our max results, -1. Then we're going to say search result selected, max results -1. Now, what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to say if our keys up then we're going to say db search result selected is -=1, and else if our keys down, key code dot down, then we're just going to +1, right? So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to say, well, if our db search result selected is equal to I, I'm actually going to make that text white to indicate the fact that we're actually highlighting it or selecting it. So, not currently doing anything when we press enter at the moment, but we're just going to see that highlight when we search on crystals. So, red crystal, that's 1, and then unknown, that's 2, right? When we do unknown, or just get rid of it. Oh. Up, down isn't doing anything. Up, down is not doing anything. Why is that not doing anything? Why is it not doing anything? Keys down. Oh. I did keys down, not keys up. Keys up. That's what I meant. Let's try that again. Crystal 1. Crystal 2. I really should fix that. Crystal 2. And Crystal 3. If we go search. Yeah, there we go. Okay. That's all good. When we press enter, we're not doing anything. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I'll actually commit the changes that I've done. Because I haven't actually done that yet. I should really do that. But we go to handle text input context. So here, so we've got our search database, as mentioned. So if we've got search result selected, so we'll get this index from our DB search result indices, DB search results selected, right? And basically, we've got our editor view is equal to items. In fact, I don't need to do that. All I need to do is just do this. All I need to do is just this. Index. That's all I need to do, I think. That's literally it. Pretty sure of it. Oh, and when we press enter, we need to make sure we handle that as well. Or, I think, no, it should just work. Should just work. It's looking a bit dark. It's looking a bit dark now. On the camera. Alright. Crystal 1. Crystal 2. I keep forgetting to do that. Like I say, I need to fix that. Crystal 3. Search. Crystal. Let's go 2. Oh. Crystal 1. Oh. What? Okay, that's interesting. Search. Crystal. This is interesting. So, doesn't, when we press enter, it's not actually doing anything, which is a bit odd. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Let's. No, I should have. Actually, let me think about this. So, we set the item DB index there. So, if I go down to our actual rendering, which is actually up here, not down. Is editing. Ah, yes. Need to make sure we're editing. That's a good idea. So DB is editing. And we need to make sure that we're not actually creating anything either. There's a lot of variables. Easy to make a mistake. Probably refactor some of this code. Crystals, create. When we press enter, what are we doing? Because we're not actually displaying anything. That's what I'm curious about. So what are we looking at here? So let's go here. Name.db search results selected is 0. Right, that's fine. So what is the actual result that we're looking at? I expect to see a 0. What is it? Not available. Really? It's not available, apparently. So what's going on here? What's this? It's undefined. What's going on? Why is this happening? What are we doing? So... that is so weird. What is going on? Where are we going with this? Oh. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I think what I should... Oops. That's not what I was meant to do. I think what I should do... handle text. No, it's what do I call it? There we are. Okay. So yeah, that was the problem. I was actually clearing the results before actually being able to handle any of it. So I need to do this, and what I'm also going to do is say because I didn't actually have anything. I didn't have any text, but I did actually want to select something. So if we make sure DB search result selected is greater than -1, then we're not going to do that. And in fact, that's this code kind of seems redundant now. In fact, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to say keys up E dot key, no, I'll do down. E dot key code escape. If I do an escape, then we'll do that. And then up in our handle event code, when I do key down or key code dot escape. So we'll do it in both cases and we'll see what to do, right? It should, in theory, prevent that problem from happening again. Crystal 1, Crystal 2, Crystal 3, right? And then if we search, you know, oh. Okay, that's a little unusual. What are we doing now? One wonders. Oh, I'm not. Am I doing any of that in the when I actually handle the text? Am I? Yeah, I'm doing it. But something preventing it from actually it's still rendering. It's still rendering a bug that we fixed previously, and now it's come back again. Oh, that worked. Interesting. What? So what happened when we did Crystal 2 then? Because that didn't seem to work. 1. Okay. Do all that. Continue. Crystal 2. Uh-oh. Oh, it's done that thing again. No, don't do that. What? Is it only working if there's text in there? That seems like the behavior, right? Oh, of course, because I'm just doing this, aren't I? Oh, dearie me. Why? This is why I had that in the first place. Okay, so in actuality, I'm going to do a quick hack. Right. Hack. Resolve this ridiculous ignore parameter. So I was going to say ignore. It's by default going to be false. And not ignore. Right. And all I'm going to do is say inside of our other handle, I'm just gonna go thanks. Oh yeah, because I'm saying that when I'm escaping, not when I'm entering. And this is when the text is empty as well. This text input context value, if it's empty. Two hours. Get this done eventually. Okay, let's not do that ignore thing. Because the issue is not so easily solved by the looks of it. Let's go back to our other handle again. So when we press enter and our text is empty, even if we've selected something, we still want to handle that case. Right. So okay. Oh God. I'm gonna do a quick hack, so just to get it working. If our text input context is that, then I'm just gonna say text input context value is equal to a space, literally. I'm gonna get rid of this. Hack. This is just to make sure that we do not forget to handle selecting an item when we search from the text box and we press enter while on press enter and no text is and text box is empty. So that's a bit of a hack, really. But that should get it working properly. Hopefully. And that's obviously on searching, like I say, so actually, at least we know the escape works. Crystal 1, Crystal 2, Crystal 3, and if we search, I do like Crystal, for example, Crystal 1, yeah, that's now selecting properly, but our text box is still doing that. I need to really fix that. It's to do with the key repeat functionality in the underlying API. It's not properly removing the scheduler. And it happens when you use custom event handling. It's really frustrating. But yeah, that now works. So that's all good. And that I'm going to pretty much wrap up this video now because it's been going on for over 2 hours and I've got quite a bit of editing to do. So that is basically that. We haven't actually done much. We didn't get to the stage that I actually wanted to show, which was the ability to select icons, but we'll have that probably implemented by next weekend when we do our next programming session, and probably a couple more things as well in the meantime. So thank you for watching. Apologies if this was a bit boring, but this is how programming sessions are probably going to be. Basically, at the beginning of the video, I will, of course, discuss what happened during the week so that you've got an idea, at least, of what's been going on. And, of course, these programming sessions from next week onwards are going to be for patrons only, for all pay tiers. Talking about Patreon, if you could check out the Patreon page, I will have a link in the description below this video so that you can go over to it and have a browse, have a look at what we're doing and how this game is going to be developed. And of course, like with the programming sessions, we'll do our monthly video updates as well, which will be, of course, public, so that you've got a better idea of what is going to happen, or what has happened, rather. And that is pretty much it for this video. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And hopefully, either I will see you in the next programming session, or, which will be next weekend, or I'll see you in the next monthly video. Thank you very much. Goodbye.